Hi, my name is Marilyn Herbert. I'm from Bookclub-in-a-Box, and I'm here to talk about Lawrence Hill's excellent novel. Someone Knows My Name, otherwise known as the Book of Negroes, is simultaneously an American and a Canadian story. The well-known Underground Railroad between the U.S. and Canada was not the only route used by slaves to come north of the border. Canadian author Lawrence Hill describes this alternative and less well-known story in his book, which has two official identities. In the United States, Australia, and New Zealand, it is titled Someone Knows My Name. In Canada and Great Britain, it is called the Book of Negroes. Although the name change seems to have a connection to the political inappropriateness of the word Negro, there is much more to it. Hill's book is primarily about the identity of the main character, Aminata Diallo, the slave otherwise known as Mina D. Hill explores identity through this character because she undergoes a number of identifying changes, not only her name. She is an African daughter, wife, mother, friend, teacher, activist, and a slave. What she is called at any given time speaks to the role she is playing at that moment. It would seem that the novel's two titles are also about identity, in that they refer to the book's uniquely individual roles depending on their geographic and political location. First, the Book of Negroes is the actual name of the existing document that dates back to the late 18th century. It was a list of 3,000 free black loyalists who left the United States heading to Nova Scotia under British protection. The book was a kind of passport record of who was traveling. Ironically, the Americans sat alongside the British and recorded the same names into their version of the Book of Negroes. Their purpose was to make sure that no one slaved properly inadvertently escaped. The American version can be found in the National Archives and Records Administration in Washington as part of Graham Hodges' Black Loyalist Directory. The original Book of Negroes is on display in the National Archives in Kew, London. Second, the American title, Someone Knows My Name, is also about identity. It echoes James Baldwin's breakthrough 1960s book, Nobody Knows My Name. When Baldwin wrote his autobiographical collection of essays on growing up black in the 60s, he was exploring black and white relationships primarily through his black perspective. Lawrence Hill does the same. Here's a quick summary of the story. Aminata Diallo was born free in Bio, Africa. Her father was a prominent jeweler and her mother a baby catcher, a midwife. One day, on their way back from delivering a baby, 11-year-old Aminata is captured by slave traders and her mother is killed. What follows is a gruesome description of how she is chained, marched to the ocean, placed on a transport ship along with thousands of other prisoners, and taken across the water only to be enslaved to white owners. We follow Aminata, or Mina as she comes to be known, from Africa to St. Helena Island, into South Carolina, up to New York, north to Nova Scotia, back across the sea to London, and also to Africa. The circle of her life forms the basis and the structure of the novel. Hill uses his many colorful characters as links to his important themes. The characters come in pairs in order to juxtapose Aminata's past and present. There are Famba and Fanta who make the journey with her from Africa. There is Chikura, the child helper to the slave traders, who is captivated by Aminata emotionally, but is captured literally by the slavers. Mahmoud and Georgia are Mina's companions on Master Appleby's plantation. These two, along with Solomon Lindo, the indigo inspector, are instrumental in giving Mina important tools of survival. The interaction of these characters with Aminata, or Mina, emphatically demonstrate the themes of the novel. The themes that Hill wants his readers to consider include identity, roots, meaning a sense of place, family, and home, belonging and separation, rescue and betrayal, adaptation and survival. And it goes without saying that the book also speaks loudly about man's inhumanity to man. One of the extraordinary features of the novel is that it is not one-sided. Many slave narratives are emotionally difficult and have a slanted perspective on who is good and who is bad. Hill does plenty of finger pointing in his book, and it effectively reminds us that slavery is not an American invention. As a result, this book offers a unique and important perspective, and it makes very valuable contributions. It fills in the historical details about how Black Canadians came to Canada and how long they have been there. It also outlines the little-known story of how free Black slaves went back to Africa and established Freetown, a city which is now the capital of Sierra Leone. It is a historical account and a tribute not only to Black Americans and Canadians, but to all people who have lost their story, the story of their history and their geography through violence. As a book of fiction, it is able to richly describe and humanize the slaves who had a vivid past, but who suddenly no longer had a viable future. Nonfiction offers statistics, but can't depict the intricacies of human relationships in the same way that fiction can. The novel emphasizes this idea of storytelling, which functions as a way of keeping people's attention on historical events and ideas. Storytellers are witnesses. As already mentioned, the novel offers a perspective on a story that is more than just black and white. Everyone was equally involved in the exploitation of African slaves: Europeans, Africans, Christians, Muslims, and Jews. Aminata raises an unanswerable question. Who's to blame for all this evil, and who started it? This seems to be a good place to start the consideration of the endless cycle of human grief and greed. In our current world, it's time to have this serious discussion. It is because of this and other questions that Hill raises that the book would make its most valuable contribution as a vehicle for education about slave history in our schools. The characters, the plot developments, the flow of ideas raise so many questions that are perfect for discussion and for learning. Lawrence Hill accomplishes all of this with a good degree of optimism. He has taken a usually depressing story and offers it up in a glass that is half full rather than half empty. There can be life after trauma. I hope that everyone will read and enjoy this book, and I hope that readers, teachers, and students will use it to further the conversation that Aminata begins with her personal story. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy it.